Hari Om, Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Continuing reading the commentary on Srimad Bhagavad Gita, written by Pujya Gurudev Swami Chinmayananda ji. We are in the 7th chapter. This is our post 83. We are starting the 4th shloka. Earlier, Krishna, in the previous shloka, slowly prepares the hearer for teaching him the subjective science, that is the higher truth, by inducing in him a taste for the same. Lord proceeds thus. Fourth shloka. Bhumirapo nalo vayuh kham mano buddhirev cha ahankara iti yamme भिन्ना प्रकृतिरष्टधा. भूमि earth, आपः water, analah fire, vayu air, kham ether, manah mind, buddhi intellect, eva even, cha and, ahankara egoism, iti thus, iyam this, me my, prakriti nature, bhinna divided, ashtadha eightfold. Earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intellect, egoism. Thus is my eightfold prakriti. In an attempt to explain the world outside as a marriage between matter and spirit, great thinkers of the Vedic period had exhausted their philosophical acumen and had given us the Sankhya philosophy. According to them, the spiritual factor Purusha, that is the consciousness in us, presiding over a given matter envelopment, that is our body, dynamizes the inert matter and makes the insentient mineral assembly to act as though it is intelligent and vital. This idea becomes clear to us when we take an example from the modern world. Swamiji gives the example from the modern world. With steel and iron, the manufacturer completes a steam engine, and when the cold engine is harnessed to steam at high pressure, it does work. Steam by itself can never express its dynamic capacity and strength. On the other hand, when it is made to work through a given equipment, it is capable of adding movement and motion to the inert iron assemblage. Similarly, one school of philosophy in India tries to explain scientifically how the eternal and the perfect comes to express itself as a world of plurality in the embrace of matter. This also explains the relationship between the spirit and the matter. The technical terms used in the philosophy for these two items are Prakriti for the matter envelopments and Purusha for the spirit factor. Krishna explains in this and the following stanza what all items together constitute the matter part in us and what exactly constitutes the spiritual entity within a living man. Once the individual comes to understand clearly and distinctly the distinction between matter and spirit, indeed, he will come to understand this, that the spirit identifying with matter is the cause for all its sufferings, and when it is detached from all its identifications, it rediscovers for itself its own essential nature as perfection, bliss absolute. The spirit identifying with matter and sharing the destinies of the inert equipment is called the ego, the Hankara. It is the ego that rediscovers itself to be nothing other than the spirit that presides over the matter. In order to make Arjuna realize how exactly one is to understand the true nature of the self in all its divine might and glory, Lord Krishna tries to enumerate the matter aspect as distinct from the spiritual truth in each individual. The five great elements mentioned earlier, along with mind, intellect, and ego, that is Ahankara, constitute, according to the Gita, the eightfold Prakriti that has come to be superimposed upon the truth through ignorance. The five great cosmic elements are represented in the microcosm, that is by our on our level, by the five sense organs by which the individual comes to experience and live in the world of sense objects. Thus, the list making up the Prakriti is nothing other than the subtle body and its vehicle of expression constituted of the sense organs. The sense organs are the channels through which the world of stimuli reaches within, and the inner point of focus of the five sense organs is called the mind. The impulses received in the mind are rationally classified and systematized into the knowledge of the reception by the intellect. At all these three levels of the sense perception, mental reception, and intellectual assimilation, there is a continuous sense of I-ness, like I heard, I saw, I decide, which is called the ego. These constitute the equipment through which, at the touch of life, man functions as the intelligent being that he is. What then is your higher nature? Listen to what Krishna says in the shloka number 5. अपरेयमितस्त्वन्यां प्रकृतिं विद्धि मे परां जीवभूतां महाबाहो ययेदं धार्यते जगत्. Apara, lower, iyam, this, itaha, from this, tu, but, anyam, different, prakritim, nature, vidhi, no, me, my, param, higher, jiva bhutam, the very life element, mahabaho, o mighty armed, yaya, by which, idam, this, dharyate, is upheld, jagat, world. This is the inferior Prakriti, but different from it, know thou, O mighty armed, my higher Prakriti, the very life element by which the world is upheld. After enumerating in the above stanza the lower nature of the self, Krishna says that it is not all, and that self possesses, besides these equipments, a higher nature which is constituted of pure consciousness or awareness in us. It is the spiritual entity that makes it possible for the body, mind, and intellect, made up of the mere inert material, to act as though they were in themselves so vitally sentient and intelligent. The spiritual factor in the entity with whose contact the equipment functions, but without which the equipment becomes dull and insentient. If consciousness were not in us, we will not be able to experience the world outside or within us. It is this consciousness that maintains, that nourishes, and sustains all the possibilities in us. Without this spiritual spark functioning in us, we would be no more intelligent or divine than the stone world. Even by a more material consideration, we can logically come to accept the conclusion declared in this stanza. I am standing on the floor of my house. The house is supported by my piece of land. The land is protected by the Delhi Corporation. Delhi is supported by India. India is supported by the world. World is supported by water. The waters of the ocean, water is held in position by the atmosphere, and the atmosphere is a part of the planetary system. The universe stays in space, and this space rests upon the concept of space. The concept of space, where it is? It is in our mind. Mind gets its support from the judgment of the intellect. Since the decision of the intellect is known and realized by the consciousness in us, the spiritual entity in the ultimate support for the entire Jagat. In philosophy, the term Jagat means not only the world of objects perceived by us through our sense organs, but it includes in its concept the world experienced through and interpreted by the mind and intellect also. Thus, the world of objects, the world of feelings, the world of ideas that we experience together in their totality constitute the Jagat. This is supported by the conscious principle with its grace showering upon them all. In this sense also, Krishna's declaration are scientifically true when he says that the higher Prakriti, the principle of consciousness, is that by which this entire world of experiences is sustained. How is the self, the creator, the sustainer, and the dissolver of the world? Listen to what Krishna says in shloka number 6. एतद् योनीनि भूतानि सर्वाणीत्युपधारय अहं कृतस्य जगतः प्रभव प्रलयस्तथा. Etad yonini. Those two Prakriti are the wombs of Bhutani, beings. Sarvani, all. Iti, thus. Upadharaya, no. Aham, I. Kritsnasya, of the whole. Jagata, of the world. Prabhavaha, source. Pralayaha, dissolution. Tatha, also. Know that these two Prakriti, that is the lower Prakriti and the higher Prakriti, which is the Lord, the consciousness, are the womb of all beings. So, I am the source and dissolution of the whole universe. The above mentioned higher and lower nature, each functioning in the embrace of the other, cause the manifestation of the world of plurality. If matter were not there, the latent dynamism in the spirit will not find a field for its expression. The matter by itself, in its inertness, will not be able to express the similitude of consciousness unless the spirit were there to dynamize it. Electricity, expressing itself through the filament in the bulb, manifests as light. Without the bulb, the light in the electricity cannot manifest itself, nor can the bulb smile forth in light without the electrical current flowing through it. The bulb is the equipment functioning through which electricity expresses itself as light. Similarly, the spirit, the consciousness, the awareness principle, when it comes to function through the five layers of matter, discovers for itself a field to express its own potentialities. Keeping this idea in mind, Lord Krishna declares here that these two are the womb of all beings. It is not very difficult for an intelligent student to realize what it actually means. Not only that the pluralistic world of objects, feelings, and ideas rises from and stays in the spirit, but it will dissolve into it again to become the higher nature. Thus, the lower nature is nothing other than the higher in its essential constitution. The higher, forgetting its own divinity, identifies itself with the lower and comes to the egocentric sorrows and imperfections. The higher suffers at present in its own delusion the sorrows of the lower, its own rediscovery of its native divine glory is the redemption of matter. The idea that the lower has risen from the higher is likened to the way in which pots of different shapes and colors have all come from the mud. Just as the mud is the truth in all the pots, the higher is the essential reality in all the objects of the sense organs, mind, and intellect, which the lower procreates. Therefore, Krishna says in the seventh stanza, Matta parataram nanyat kinchidasti dhananjaya mai sarvamidam protam sutre manigana iva. This is quite a popular stanza where Krishna says, Mattah, than me, Parataram, higher, na, not, Anyat, other, Kinchit, anyone, Asti is Dhananjaya, O Dhananjaya, Mai in me, Sarvam, all, Idam, this, Protam is strung, Sutre, on a string, Manigana, clusters of gem, Eva, like. There is nothing whatsoever higher than me. O Dhananjaya, all this is strung in me as clusters of gem on a string. There are two possible points of view of our life if the above mentioned theory is accepted. There is a point of view from the lower and distinctly different from it. There is another point of view of life from the higher also. Just as in the just as in the mud there is none of the different shapes and colors of the pots, so too in the pure consciousness there is none of the world of objects, feelings, and ideas. Besides me, Krishna says, there is not. After waking up to the waker, there is nothing of the dream world for his recognition. In the endless waves that rise in the ocean, there is nothing other than the ocean itself. None of the waves can rise, nor stay, nor can ultimately reach anywhere but the ocean itself. In short, nothing can remain ever totally divorced from its own essential nature. The first indicates that each one of us has a lower nature which is married to our own self, but still the doubt might come into the minds of the students of the Gita that the self in me is different from the self in all others. This logic of thinking may, as a result, come to the conclusion that there are as many different selves as there are different bodies in the world, to show that the self is one and the same in all the forms. It has been said here that the Lord is the common factor in all forms in the universe. He holds them all intact as a cord holds the pearls in a necklace. These words have deep significance. Not only that it is beautiful in its poetic suggestion, but it has also a very exhaustive philosophical indication. The pearls in the necklace are necessarily uniform and homogeneous, and its thread, which is generally unseen, passes through the geometrical core of every pearl and holds the big and the small into harmonious thing of beauty. Again, the substance of which the pearls are made is totally and different from the constituents that go to make the thread. Similarly, the worlds are all held together by the spiritual truth into a complete whole. Even in an individual, the mind, the intellect, the body, each different from one another, can be harmoniously work and unitedly give the music of life for him, because the same conscious principle works through all these different and varying matter equipments. Here is an instance where we see Sri Vedavyasa typically represented as the poet philosopher of the world. This example is not only poetic but also deeply philosophical. In the further shlokas, Krishna elaborates some more on the same point, which we will take up next time. Thank you for listening. Take care. Hari Om.